Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most daring and shocking attacks in modern warfare, the destruction of the Crimea Bridge, an event that has shaken Russia's confidence and sent a message across the world. The explosion wasn't just another military strike, it was a symbolic and strategic move that hit the very heart of Russian power. The attack has been called Ukraine's boldest strike yet, and its impact continues to ripple through politics, the battlefield, and international relations. When the Crimea Bridge was first built, it was a grand symbol of Russia's victory and control. Stretching nearly 12 miles across the Kerch Strait, it physically connected Russia to the Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed from Ukraine in 2014. For Vladimir Putin, this bridge was more than infrastructure. It was a monument to his authority and his vision of a greater Russia. Billions of dollars were poured into its construction, and its opening was celebrated as a moment of national pride. But what took years to build was shattered in seconds. In the early hours of that fateful morning, residents and drivers reported hearing an enormous explosion. The sound echoed across the strait, and within seconds, flames consumed the bridge. Thick black smoke poured into the sky as the structure shook under the force of the blast. Videos shared online captured the chaos cars swerving, truck alarms blaring, and massive fireballs rising above the water. The bridge that once symbolized unity had been torn apart in a single, devastating moment. The immediate reaction was disbelief. Russia had considered the bridge untouchable, one of the most heavily protected structures in the country. Surveillance systems, naval patrols, and constant monitoring made it seem impossible to breach. Yet here it was burning, broken, and collapsing into the sea. The explosion revealed not only a vulnerability in Russian defenses, but also the precision and audacity of Ukraine's strategy. This wasn't a random act of sabotage. It was a calculated blow designed to shake the foundation of Moscow's military operations. For Ukraine, this moment represented more than military success. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Since the beginning of the conflict, Ukraine had been the underdog, facing a much larger and better equipped army. The destruction of the Crimea Bridge changed that narrative overnight. It showed the world that Ukraine was not only capable of defending itself, but also of striking deep into territory once thought to be beyond reach. The symbolism was powerful. The bridge that connected Russia to occupied Crimea now lay in ruins, and with it, the illusion of Russian invincibility. In Moscow, the atmosphere turned tense. Putin, who had personally inaugurated the bridge, reportedly received the news with fury. Within hours, he labeled the explosion a terrorist attack and blamed Ukraine's intelligence services. State media scrambled to control the narrative, releasing conflicting reports about the cause of the blast. Some claimed a truck bomb detonated while crossing the bridge. Others suggested a missile strike or underwater sabotage. Whatever the method, the impact was undeniable. Russia's pride had taken a direct hit. Military analysts were quick to point out the strategic significance of the attack. The Crimea Bridge was Russia's main supply line to its troops in southern Ukraine, carrying fuel, weapons, and reinforcements. By taking it out, Ukraine had disrupted a critical artery feeding Russia's war machine. Trains carrying ammunition and tanks could no longer cross safely. Every supply route now had to detour hundreds of miles, creating logistical nightmares and weakening Russia's front-line positions. The explosion wasn't just about symbolism, it was about cutting off the lifeblood of the Russian military effort. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian government maintained strategic silence. Officials neither confirmed nor denied involvement. Instead, cryptic messages appeared on social media, images of the burning bridge captioned with phrases like "sick burn" or "the beginning." To many Ukrainians, it was a moment of triumph. After months of suffering from bombings and blackouts, the sight of the bridge in flames became a symbol of hope, resistance, and retribution. International reactions poured in swiftly. Western allies of Ukraine praised the event as a major turning point in the war. Analysts described it as a strategic masterpiece that would shift momentum. The world watched as Russia scrambled to respond, torn between retaliation and damage control. Satellite images showed the extent of the devastation. Large portions of the roadway had collapsed, rail lines were twisted and unusable, and the surrounding waters were covered in debris. For a country that prided itself on strength, the optics were disastrous. In Russia, however, the explosion sent shockwaves through society. The bridge had been seen as a sacred project, a symbol of national pride and unity. Its destruction triggered fear and anger among ordinary citizens. For the first time, many Russians felt that the war was reaching their doorstep. Online forums filled with questions: how could this happen, and who was responsible? The government tightened its control over media reports, censoring videos and threatening those who spread false information. But the damage was already done. The world had seen what happened, and no amount of censorship could erase the fiery image of that broken bridge. Putin's retaliation came swiftly. Within days, Russia launched one of its largest waves of missile strikes across Ukraine, targeting energy facilities, communication centers, and civilian areas. The goal was to show strength, to remind Ukraine and the world that Russia still had power. But these strikes also revealed something else: desperation. The timing made it clear that the missile attacks were driven more by emotion than strategy. The explosion of the Crimea Bridge had struck a nerve deep inside the Kremlin. In the weeks that followed, the investigation into the blast became a global mystery. Russia's security services released footage showing a truck crossing the bridge moments before the explosion, claiming it was loaded with explosives. Ukrainian sources hinted at a combination of intelligence and local sabotage. Western experts speculated about drone involvement or underwater mines. Each theory added to the intrigue, but what mattered most wasn't how the bridge was destroyed, it was what the destruction represented. The fall of the Crimea Bridge became a turning point in perception. It showed that no matter how powerful Russia appeared, its infrastructure was vulnerable. It also proved that Ukraine could execute complex operations with precision and patience. This single act forced Russia to divert massive resources to protect other bridges, railways, and depots, stretching their defenses thin across multiple regions. Every future attack now carried the fear of another Crimea moment. The symbolic weight of this event cannot be overstated. The Crimea Bridge was a political and emotional lifeline for Putin. Its fall was seen as a personal humiliation. Propaganda outlets tried to frame the attack as an act of terrorism against civilians, but few outside Russia believed it. For the global audience, it was clear Ukraine had struck a legitimate military and strategic target, and in doing so, it had shifted the balance of psychological power. As days turned into weeks, efforts to repair the bridge began. Russian engineers worked day and night to restore traffic, while media channels broadcast scenes of construction as proof of resilience. But beneath the surface, the damage to Russia's image was irreparable. The world had witnessed its vulnerability, and no amount of rebuilding could erase that. Each repaired section of the bridge carried the memory of its destruction, a silent reminder that even the mightiest structures can fall. For Ukraine, the attack marked a new level of confidence. It proved that boldness and intelligence could achieve what brute force could not. It sent a signal not only to Russia, but also to the global stage. Ukraine was capable of taking control of its destiny. This was no longer a defensive war. It was a statement of defiance. The country that had been underestimated had just pulled off one of the most daring strikes in modern warfare. International observers began referring to the event as a turning point in the war's narrative. The destruction of the Crimea Bridge wasn't just a physical event, it was a psychological victory that reshaped the global conversation. Suddenly, discussions about peace, escalation, and power dynamics took on new meaning. If Ukraine could strike a symbol so central to Russia's dominance, then perhaps the tide was truly turning. Within Russia's military command, frustration grew. Generals faced tough questions about how such an attack could happen under their watch. Internal reports suggested that security protocols had been ignored, intelligence warnings had been missed, and coordination failures had left the bridge vulnerable. These revelations fueled tension among senior officers, many of whom feared becoming scapegoats. Behind closed doors, the sense of unity within the Kremlin began to fracture. Putin's public response was to double down. He framed the attack as an act of Western aggression, claiming Ukraine had support from NATO intelligence. By turning the narrative outward, he attempted to rally domestic support and justify new offensives, but his tone betrayed his anger. The bridge had been his personal project. He had once driven a truck across it himself to celebrate its completion. Now it was in ruins, and the images of him smiling during its opening ceremony contrasted painfully with the current scenes of smoke and destruction. As experts analyzed the footage, many agreed that the strike was not only technically brilliant, but symbolically devastating. The explosion didn't just destroy a bridge, it shattered the illusion of Russian control over Crimea. It reminded the world that this territory, though occupied, was still contested. The attack sent a chilling message: no structure, no matter how fortified, is safe when the cause of freedom burns brighter than fear. The aftermath also revealed how propaganda and reality often clash. Russian state TV tried to downplay the explosion, showing quick footage of minor fires and claiming that traffic had resumed. But videos shared online told the real story: massive chunks of roadway gone, twisted metal hanging over the water, and fires that took hours to control. The truth couldn't be hidden. The entire world had seen it. As months passed, the Crimea Bridge became more than just a war target. It became a global metaphor, a symbol of how power, when built on oppression, can collapse under its own weight. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage and precision can rewrite history. For Ukrainians, it became a rallying cry, proof that they could fight back, that they could strike deep into the heart of their occupiers' pride. In the bigger picture, the event reshaped how both sides approached the war. Russia was forced to increase its defenses, stretch its resources, and rethink its logistics. Ukraine, emboldened by success, gained momentum and morale. The bridge explosion didn't end the conflict, but it changed its tone forever. It was no longer a story of a small nation. Surviving it became a story of a nation standing tall, challenging a superpower and refusing to break. In the end, the destruction of the Crimea Bridge will be remembered not only for its physical impact, but for what it symbolized: the courage to challenge the impossible, the precision to strike at the heart of power, and the resilience to keep fighting against overwhelming odds. It was a moment that captured the world's attention and reminded everyone that symbols of dominance can crumble, and that even in war, boldness can become history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest events shaping our world. Stay informed, stay strong, and remember, sometimes one act of defiance can change everything.